Thanks for giving us part of your class time to work with you. So for this morning, there are a couple of things that we want to introduce to you. So we're not, here to overload in any sense. We want to focus on 3 key areas and to just kind of use those to kind of take some initial steps towards your future planning. So first has to do with just an introduction to the big college systems that our students consider. Next is using Naviance as a search tool, so kind of becoming familiar with making sure that you can log in and then also how to utilize it for some specific purposes. And today we're just looking at search, but there are many other things that you can use Naviance for. And then the last part that we'll shift to is just an introduction to cost. So kind of coming to some just very basic understandings of the cost tiers or kind of levels of tuition that you pay. So for most of you, when you leave high school, that would be your first experience where you or your families are kind of paying for school for the first time. So some of you may have private school in your background, but for many of you, if not most, you've always been in a public school K through 12, and now it's not only are there a ton of different options, but there are many different kind of cost structures to them. So we want to just kind of introduce that just so you have kind of a basic understanding and it can kind of guide some of the search as it fits for you. Okay. So that's kind of an overview of where we're headed, okay? And then these are the objectives that we hope to reach, or that you can leave here with some understanding of. And again, just kind of use it as that baseline or launching point. Nothing set in stone, nothing concrete, but just to have a general understanding of how to move forward, how to utilize some of the resources through the remainder of this semester, but then especially in the spring as things start to formalize a little bit for you. Okay. So we tend to frame college options initially, at least, within 5 big systems. So about 95, 96, 97% of our graduates go on directly to one of these 5 systems. We do have some students who enlist in the military each year, so kind of direct enlistment in one of the branches. Some who pursue apprenticeship or kind of like an on-the-job or career tech type training. Maybe they become an electrician or a carpenter or something in that area. And then increasingly, we have some students who take a gap year. So that's kind of like the 5% that we don't spend a lot of time covering, but we do work individually with students as they're looking to explore those options. And then Mrs. Rector in the Career Center is pretty involved in that too. Okay? But as far as looking at the systems, we've organized them in a way where we start with kind of what our students choose the most, or kind of in the largest numbers, and then working towards some of the smaller subsets within that. So for the community college system, that is generally speaking our largest destination. If you look at it as a system as a whole for any graduating class. So it's typically between a quarter and a third of our graduates go directly to a 2-year college. Most of those choose a community college in California, and most of those choose to stay local for that. So typically West Valley and Piazza, those are our 2 big kind of destination points. And we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to the cost part, but for those who choose West Valley, there's some real kind of big built-in advantages of that. And 2 that are prominent. One is the community grant, which essentially covers your tuition for 2 years. So if you go to West Valley, you don't pay for college for your first 2 years, which is pretty big. The second is an accompanying grant called the Viking Grant, and that gives you an equal amount of money. I think it's $1,500 or $2,000 per year to pay for books, materials, parking, food, just any other expense that you have that connects to education. So if you think about that, being able to go to school for free and essentially have additional money to spend on all the kind of the extra stuff that accompanies tuition or the other expenses that you might have, that's a pretty big deal to be able to go potentially get halfway through your undergraduate degree without any out-of-pocket expense. So anyway, that kind of speaks a lot to why our students choose West Valley in such large numbers. Also, it's a very good community college. But when students enter, they typically are looking at one of 3 options. So those are kind of explained there, where you're looking at an associate's degree or a transfer curriculum. So completing years 1 and 2 at a community college, transferring to a UC, a CSU, out of state, private, wherever you go, and then completing years 3 and 4 at that transfer institution. So that's kind of one way to utilize a community college. Others are more focused on a career degree or a career certificate. So the career degree, that would be a combination of general ed classes and then the career specific. It could be culinary arts, it could be computer graphics, could be music production, could be administration of justice, or like essentially the law enforcement coursework that you would take before going to police academy. There's so many different options within that. So that career piece can be one focus, or the career certificate, and that the certificate would be just the career courses themselves. That kind of takes the general ed requirements out. So a little bit more there in terms of overview and transfer. We will place the slide deck in Canvas so that way you've got all the links and you can come back to it as you want. If you guys have questions at any point, please just stop me and make sure to answer them kind of with that. Okay? So moving on, our next largest system tends to be the CSU, and that's almost 20% of a graduating class that will go to the CSU campus. California is a bit unique in that it has 2 systems of 4-year or higher education. So the CSU is very much focused on career preparation and career readiness. So preparing students with a bachelor's degree or an undergraduate degree to go directly into the workforce. So that's why you see majors like these that are typically only offered within the CSU in California. So something like athletic training or administration of justice or criminal justice administration, fire science, things like that, fire services administration. Those majors, generally speaking, are not offered in the UC. So when someone has an idea of what they want to do, they want to pursue the 4-year degree and they want to be, essentially job ready at graduation, the CSU is a great opportunity or just a great option for them. It doesn't mean that you can't do research in a CSU or that you can't have more like a liberal arts or a more theoretical approach, but it's much more a learning by doing institution. So some of you might be kind of familiar with that, maybe more specific to Cal Poly. I think that one is really well understood within our school community, that if you go to Cal Poly, no matter what you study, it has kind of an upside down curriculum, meaning that you go into your major classes right away, and that every major has a career connection and an internship to it, and so on and so forth. And the nice thing is that's not just Cal Poly, that's really the CSU as a whole that is set up that way for students who want a more applied, hands-on approach to learning. Okay? So relatively affordable within the realm of higher education. So kind of like the second most affordable option in California, so above the community college, but well below the UC and private schools. So I know that can be kind of a big dollar amount to look at in terms of what you pay for tuition per year. But again, relatively speaking within higher ed, and we'll talk more about cost in a few minutes, that's a pretty affordable option in terms of your tuition and fees per year. Okay? All right. Moving on to the UC, so this would be the third public option in California. So the UC is different than the CSU in that it is much more research-based. Okay, so that research is set up or funded in a way where if the CSU is preparing students, for the California of today, the UC is basically educating students to create the California of tomorrow. So that's why you hear a lot about cutting-edge research coming out of UC institutions in engineering, in the sciences, in the health sciences. Some of that would be more at the graduate level, and other areas as well. So very much a research emphasis, but also a liberal arts component too. So kind of this broad theoretical education that you can get, very high quality. Again, more expensive than CSU, much more expensive than a community college, but still relatively affordable in terms of what students pay to attend college. So very high quality, good affordability, kind of schools that a lot of students are familiar with, so on and so forth. A lot of students now transfer to the UC, so it's become harder to gain acceptance as freshmen, especially to campus that you might most want to attend. And I believe it's now about a third of students who attend a UC campus started at a community college, most of those being California community college transfers. Yeah.
So if you go to a community college, will you like knock out your general ed and then you can transfer to like a higher up college and then do like the more expensive classes there for your main degree?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. So, you know, if you, let's say, we'll just use as an example, West Valley to UC Santa Cruz, kind of two, you know, local institutions. So rather than spending all 4 years at UC Santa Cruz, you can spend your first 2 years at West Valley taking identical courses that are guaranteed to transfer. And, you know, essentially if you took, you know, elementary statistics at West Valley, that would be the identical course that you would take at UC Santa Cruz, but for free or at a greatly reduced cost, and then transfer for years 3 and 4. So yeah, great way to look at it. So, and actually with that, you know, one of the links is specific to planning a transfer, and then the last one explains what a transfer agreement guarantee is. So 6 of the 9 UC campuses have tag agreements or the ability to basically set up your transfer. So if you know coming out of high school, you know, I want to start at West Valley and then I want to transfer to, you know, UC Santa Cruz and I want to major in computer science. You can meet with a counselor right away before you graduate from high school, start to set up that course pattern and exactly what you need to do. And then once you get halfway through your community college classes, you essentially sign a contract that guarantees you a spot at UC Santa Cruz as long as you complete the second half and earn a minimum GPA. So it's pretty straightforward and gives you a lot of opportunities within that. Okay? Very good questions. Any other questions on the first 3? Yeah?
Oh, the first 3, no.
Oh, no, go forward, just in general. Go ahead.
Oh, so, should I, if I got most of the stuff done ready for the college, do I need to reply like end of this year or the next year?
Usually application for a community college for a culinary program, or is that what you're thinking?
No, but private college stuff.
I mean,
General all colleges.
Yeah, generally you would do that in your senior year. It might be in the fall semester, it might be in the spring, and that'd be a good question to bring up to your counselor, just to kind of look at timing of that, so you kind of know now, you know, where that's headed. Yeah.
Wait, so if you can go to a community college and like save a lot of money and then are pretty much guaranteed to transfer to like a UC, like what's the downside to that? Like why doesn't everybody do that?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you're my diplomas. I went to community college and transferred to UC Davis. And the big difference there, David, is that you're not going to be living in a dorm. You're not good. I didn't rush for a sorority, but the community college I went to had a lot of clubs, co-ed sports, things I could participate in. But for me personally, that just wasn't my goal. I wasn't really into living in a dorm situation. I was very independent right away. I lived in my own apartment. And so it just depends on your personality and kind of what works for you. It's just going to be a different experience.
Is that really it? Just the experience?
Yeah,
Really, that's it. It's some students want to be involved in their college for 4 years, like the social part of it and the other pieces of it. And others, that's not as important. And I would say, like, some students maybe want to study abroad. Well, West Valley has a really good study abroad program. So you don't even have to be at the 4-year college for that. I mean, there's lots of social things that one can do at a community college too. So it's really a personal preference as far as just the environment. But the academics, in some cases, the community college are even better because they're often smaller classes, especially for those introduction classes at, say, the UCs that could be like a class of 300 taught by a research assistant or a teacher's assistant. Whereas if you're at West Valley, it's a class about this size and it's taught by the teacher. And often it's taught by a teacher who also, like, say, works at Cisco and is on in the evenings teaching business class. So you get that kind of real life experience too.
So like, if you wanted to get like an undergraduate degree at like a UC school and then pursue something after that you have to get accepted in again, like do you think there would be a tangible sort of like difference in how like sort of other colleges, like for the upper, like the second degree that you might like view you if you just do 2 years at a community college?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't think you're disadvantaged at all. and essentially, applying to say law school or a graduate program or whatever it is, they're looking to see, where did you finish, not where did you start.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, what did you do along the way? So what type of experiences did you have? So,
And often they want to know, are you going to be successful when you come here, right? So if you're a transfer student, you're that much more organized on top of it. You figured out how to get classes from, from one school to another. So that actually is a positive.
David, I got my master's after transferring to UC Davis. No
Yeah.
problems. Yeah.
Great questions.
Yeah.
One more, then
I mean,
we'll keep going.
I don't know if I want to get technical, but you mentioned that about like study abroad program and like at West Valley as well. How does that exactly work?
I don't know how their program actually works, but I do know that they have one. So you can probably explore their website. Yeah.
Great. You guys have really good questions.
I get
We'll
it.
keep
You
going.
go to the next one?
Yeah, so 2 more systems to go through. These are not as formal, they're more systems that we refer to or that we kind of created just for our organization. So when we look at other public institutions outside of California, we just lump them all together and just refer to them as out-of-state public universities. Okay? So that would be your University of Oregon, University of Arizona, Colorado State, on and on and on. And a lot of our students are applying and pursuing those options and attending because it opens kind of a secondary, set of options for them. So some schools may be easier to gain access to, especially in certain majors. Nursing and engineering are perfect examples. There are not a ton of nursing spots in California at four-year colleges and universities. So somebody who knows that he or she wants to study nursing may find really good options out of state. And oftentimes those options are just better suited or better fits than what's offered in California. Maybe that out-of-state school has an entire, health complex, hospital, teaching hospital, so on and so forth. And going to the University of Arizona for nursing might be a better option than going to a Cal State because of the learning environment attached to that hospital and clinic. That's just kind of a loose example, but you could take that from a lot of different majors, a lot of different opportunities. Sometimes it's just having a change of scenery, a different experience altogether, being able to pursue an activity that you're passionate about. Thinking back a few years, but I had a student who knew that he wanted to study engineering and he loved to ski and snowboard. So he chose the University of Utah because it gave him a combination of the two that allowed him to be a really good student in a program that he was interested in and have that extracurricular that was just a big part of his life. So lots of different reasons. You can see a range of cost structures. Some states are more affordable to attend if you're coming from out of state. Others, are very much in the private college, university, in terms of cost. So that just gives you just a very small sample, but you can kind of see that there's a pretty broad range. Okay? And we can help you kind of better understand that too, and kind of why that range is the way it is. Yeah.
Those costs are per year.
Yes, tuition per year. Yeah, we're just looking at tuition. We haven't included any numbers for room and board and other expenses. We're just kind of, just a standardized thing where, things we're just looking at tuition. Yeah.
Is it true that a lot of the places where you study, you have to complete your practice there? So if you study medicine in, let's say, Utah, you have to complete your you do your medical practice in Utah? You can't go to California or something?
So that would be an example of a graduate or a professional level, but definitely not an expert in this, but I think at the undergraduate level, the type of exams that you might take to certify you for a profession, you can take that and pretty much go state to state. So if somebody studies accounting and they become a certified public accountant, you may register in the state where you're going to practice, but I'm pretty sure you can go anywhere and you don't have to necessarily take exams for Colorado or exams for Arizona or whatever it might be.
And remember, right now we're talking undergraduate degrees, so you're not actually we're talking pre-med or biology or just a general business degree, and then you're going to go and take those certifications or those advanced programs maybe in the state that you want to practice.
Yeah.
Yes, when it comes to going to college out of state, a couple things. What is the normal reduction for tuition when it comes to in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition? And living in a state, what are the requirements or tax limits in that state to be considered an in-state student?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. So I would say in general, out-of-state tuition compared to in-state, it's usually 2 to 3 times more. So that's kind of like a base, starting level. But a lot of those out-of-state schools will discount that 3 times more, and maybe they bring it down to 1.5 times more. Or maybe they bring it as close as they can to UC tuition because they want to attract a California student to come in. So generally speaking, the stronger you are, in terms of GPA and maybe test scores, maybe not, but probably let's just say courses and GPA at this point, the more likely the school is to discount the tuition because they know that the number of UC spots are very limited, and if they're providing an education that's similar to a UC campus, and they can also offer a cost that is close, maybe not quite there, but close, you might be likely to say, hey, I didn't get into Davis. Davis was my first choice. I'd love to go there. But Oregon State is offering me, a similar education. It's going to cost $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 more per year. But I really like that. That just seems like a good option for me, and I'm willing to work more in the summers, work while I'm at school, borrow, whatever it is to cover that difference.
We're a real populous state, and so out-of-state schools love us and they want us, and they realize that our schools or our colleges are pretty impacted. So they're really apt to try to work it out so we can go there.
Yeah, and Los Gatos students are particular because they know how well prepared our students are. So there's a track record of our kids going anywhere and everywhere and being very successful in what they do. And that all builds into their models in terms of recruiting and accepting and retaining and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
With the second part of what I was asking, if I were to move to a state.
Oh yeah, it's right. I forgot that.
No.
I think generally speaking, it takes 12 months to establish residency. Usually you have to file a tax return in that state. So you need to have some type of permanent residence for that minimum time, usually be working and paying taxes in that state. And I'd say generally that's going to take
It's not as easy as it sounds. Like, let's go here. They have a lot of things, T's you need to cross and I's you need to dot to be able to do it.
Yeah. So, okay.
We got to do some kind of pass.
Yeah. The last system would be private colleges and universities. So those are independent, meaning that they're not taxpayer supported. So the taxes that your parents pay as California residents, then part of that goes to support the UCs and the CSUs. Those taxpayer dollars don't support Stanford and Santa Clara and USC and private schools. So they are independent or they're tuition driven. And you can see in part that makes them much more expensive to attend. But they're also different in terms of how they're set up. So typically they're smaller. They tend to be focused almost entirely on undergraduates and creating a very tight-knit, personalized community and educational experience. And for students and families, that's often something that they want. I think that they want to be known, they want to be part of a community, they want to know their instructors and professors, they want to know their classmates, they want to feel connected to a school and learning community. That it's not that you can't do that at a larger school, but I think it's just sometimes a little bit easier to do that in a smaller place. Okay? All right,
so we're going to get you moving around a little bit now, not at your desk, but on your computer. We want you to kind of get back into Naviance. How many, do you remember Naviance? Anybody remember using it? Okay, a few of you, great. So we want to get you trying the college search today. So let's first quickly get into campus, get into your campus. Go to the class of 2023 folder, and if you click on assignments, you'll see junior activity. And once you click on that, you'll see both a link to this presentation. You'll see a link to college factors to consider, which is something you might want to look at some point. But you'll also see a link to Naviance. So go ahead and click on that. For everybody, your username for Naviance is your school email. Now, most people probably have forgotten their password at this point, and that's okay. What we don't want you to do is to try it a few times because it'll lock you out for the rest of the period, and we don't want to do that. So if you don't remember your password, or don't even think you remember it, that's okay. Just click forgot password. Just start out that way. You'll get an email to your email account, and then you can reset it. And then again, only try that reset once, and that doesn't work, then raise your hand and we'll come by and help you out.
College's icon in the top and in the center.
Okay.
If you click on that, then you can link to the SuperMatch.
And it just takes
So that's really the activity to become familiar with and to start to engage in. So that's kind of where we're headed once you are logged in. And we'll just circulate around and make sure that everybody's able to access, and then if you have any questions on that, we can answer those. What's the email? Email with your school email address.
The college's option, and we want you to try the SuperMatch. Naviance is a great tool for a lot of things that you're going to do over the next year and a half. It's a great place to do college searches. It's a great place to do career searches. You can search by different careers, see how much they pay, see what type of majors you would need to do that career, and then you can check which colleges offer those majors. So there's lots of good resources on that side. We have a personality assessment in there. There's a interest inventory assessment in there. So it's a good overall way to start thinking about your post-high school plan and goal. And then in senior year, you're actually going to use Naviance to request transcripts for colleges, to ask your teacher for a recommendation, or ask your counselor for a recommendation if you need those. So it has a lot of really good resources. You're also going to track the colleges that you applied to and the colleges you got into, so then future students like yourselves can use that information. Because another thing you'll find in Naviance is something called a scattergram, which I really like. And that, if you're thinking of, say, UC Santa Cruz, and you're trying to figure out, is that a school that, you know, I could get into, you can pull that up in a scattergram and see all the kids from our school that have applied there, how many got in, how many didn't, what their average GPA was, what their average SAT scores were. So it gives you some really good information as you're doing your own college searches. But right now, the key thing we want you to do is start what's called a SuperMatch. So you find that under the colleges tab, and then find your fit. And you'll see, and if anybody's not in yet, just raise your hand, Mr. Rich can help you while I'm talking for a minute. But under that SuperMatch, you can, there's all kinds of different factors that you can look at. You can look at location, because as Mr. Rich said, some people want to be where they can go skiing, or some people want to stay in California, or some students are dying to get to the East Coast. So you can search for colleges by location. You can search by type of environment, like say you want to be in a rural place or you want to be in a city. You can search by college size. You can search by college major. And that one's an important one because you want to make sure it's offering your major. So you can search by major. And then you can get really fine-tune your search. You can start searching by the activities that they offer on campus, the sports that they offer on campus, are they co-ed, all those kinds of things. Do they have a religious affiliation? You know, all those kinds of parameters. And you can add parameters and things that are must-haves, like my college has to have these options, like I have to have this major, and call it things that you would like to have. And you'll find that every time you enter a new parameter, the list of colleges towards the bottom of the page, you can page up, you'll see all kinds of colleges. The list gets smaller and smaller. So it's a great way to start doing some research. And there's all kinds of parameters. So put some in, take some out, kind of get a feel for what might be important to you. One little tip when you're looking at the major, they give you all kinds of majors and they're pretty specific. So say you're interested in biology, you may want to choose all the biology related majors so you can get a broader range of colleges. Or say engineering, you may want to choose all of the types of engineering you might be interested in. That'll give you a broader range of colleges. Okay. If there's any college that you happen to like, then what you can do is there's a little heart next to it. Just click on the heart, it'll turn pink. And that will add that college to a college that you're thinking about. Doesn't mean you're going to apply there, it just means it's interesting to you. The plus of that is it starts to kind of form a list for you to keep, exploring more and looking into more. And we'd love for you to have a list created kind of by mid-spring, at least to start. So you can, you just have some ones that you can start to look through and research more. But also the key thing is that once you put a little heart on that college you're interested in, if that college rep comes to visit our school, we will send you an automatic email letting you know that. So you don't have to be thinking about it. You'll start getting emails on this. So that's a good resource as well. And later, when you come to apply, you can just move those into the college opportunity category.
Is there a possible way to find like applications like out of other countries, so not just Canada?
I changed it.
Is it not
That's
showing
what's not
international?
working.
It does.
My
Yeah,
email.
because they definitely have given out to schools. Go back up one.
Move forward, but please know, this is access that you have from home, anytime that you want to use it. And I think if you approach this as kind of putting together your own puzzle, and you think about these as puzzle pieces, for some of you, the puzzle piece may be, location. Maybe it's all about location. Maybe it's all about major, or it's all about school size, or whatever it is. You can choose as few of those pieces as you want to focus on, or as many. And it doesn't have to be SuperMatch, but there are certainly other search tools you can use as well. And I think it's a good kind of exploration technique, just to maybe explore all of the options within a given state. Regional options that have a certain major. As many configurations as you want to put together. Yeah.
So what's the difference between like all of the degrees? Because I'm looking at them and they've got like bachelor's, master's, doctorate, etc.
Yeah, we typically focus on kind of the first two. So the associates, that would be the 2-year degree, and then the bachelor's would be the 4-year degree. So that kind of tends to be where our focus is. Anything beyond that would be kind of that graduate or professional level of training, which it's not that you won't get to that, it's just we'll be distant memories at that point. So we're just going to focus on kind of the immediate next steps. Yeah.
And this is like private, right? This the stuff we put in there isn't like sold to colleges for like information.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Okay. So shifting a little bit towards cost. This graph just gives you a summary of the tuition figures that we had included in the earlier slides. Some of them are averages for the last two, but just to give you an idea that the same end result can have very different cost figures attached. So if the goal is a 4-year degree or a bachelor's degree, you can reach that with a combination of the first two, or maybe options 1 plus 2, 3, or 4, or it might be, at that out-of-state or private level for all 4 years. So you can take that and kind of multiply by 4 to have an idea of where that cost may lead to. Okay? And then on the next slide, we actually give you more of a concrete example. So we put this together with the idea of a student who wants to pursue kind of a lucrative, high demand, high career potential major. So computer engineering, certainly in this area, that's a person who would be very sought after coming out of college, high earnings potential immediately and throughout their career. So let's say that person is going to start at $85,000, $100,000, $115,000 a year right out of college, 22, 23 years old. Different ways that you can get to that same end result, all with very high quality and potentially very good learning or academic experiences. So you can see for the student who starts at West Valley, transfers to San Jose State, the total degree cost in today's dollars, that would be less than $16,000. And that's, you're probably not going to be able to do any better than that in terms of getting to that 4-year degree. And versus somebody who may choose a private route and attend a private school for 4 years, and just the tuition alone is above $200,000. So we're not trying to promote what's least expensive, what's most expensive, what strikes a balance between the two. We just simply, excuse me, simply want to kind of expose you to and lay out the idea that, you know, there are lots of different tiers and cost structures for attending school. So somebody who may be a citizen of a different country could potentially go back to that country and study for free. I heard somebody was asking about Irish, you know, schools in Ireland. So, you know, if you hold an EU passport or you're, you know, a citizen, then that could be an option. It makes a lot of financial sense because you don't necessarily have to pay for that. So lots of different considerations to make. We don't expect, you know, cost to be the end all and be all, but for most families and most students, it is at least one factor that they consider. So we want to introduce those kind of tiers at this point. Okay. All right. So that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. So anyway, so we wanted to, just to summarize, is there any questions before, I know you guys have done some good job of asking questions along the way. We actually are going to have a college rep from each of these college systems that Mr. Rich just talked about here to talk to you the week after we get out or get back from Thanksgiving. It'll be Thursday evening. We're going to do it virtual this year one more time. We usually do it in person, but we're going to do it virtual again one more year just because it's a big event. Usually students come with their parents and kind of to learn about the different systems. And it's just a little too many people on campus yet. So we're going to do it again virtually. The plus of that is that you can see all 5 of the speakers. Normally you have to kind of choose 3. So you can hear all 5 of the speakers. We're going to run one after the other. We'll send you an agenda. They'll do a little talk about both their own college that they're representing, but also the system that they're representing. So you can hear, you know, about those types of colleges, what they want in their applications, the types of educations that they provide. And then you can also ask questions. There'll be a little Q&A at the end. And we will record the whole thing. So if you can't make it that evening or you can only make part of it, we will have all of that available in Canvas for you. Again, great thing to go to watch with your parents. You can do it while you're having dinner and learn about the different systems. Also, we have here some more financial aid resources. So like I said, this presentation is in Canvas. You guys all have access to that and saw it. We're going to go over more of a timeline of the whole application process in the spring. We didn't want to overwhelm you guys today, so we're just starting with here's the types of colleges, and then we'll go over more later. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit more is the SAT, the ACT. It's still a very, still a big question on what they're going to require next year. You guys will know that for sure though that the UCs and the CSUs aren't requiring them as part of their application. And a lot of out-of-state publics are still going to be optional. A lot of California schools I'm sure will still be optional, and I think most schools will be still for the following year. Usually students start taking those tests in the spring, and we're actually going to offer one on campus. More information will come out about that in the weeks to come. So that's that. One last thing we'd like you to do before you close up your computers, there's a survey in that folder, in the Canvas folder that we were just in. If you could take just a brief moment to fill that out, it's not very long, and just answer the couple questions in there. That just helps us make these types of presentations better for the students to come.
Any last questions before we go over this? Yeah.
What does it mean for like the SAT to be optional? Like, if you, let's say one person has a score and the other person doesn't, how will they be like looked at compared to each other?
Yeah, so typically schools that are optional, they have 2 different ways to review applications. So one with test scores and one without. And I think the information that came out from last year's class was that it didn't necessarily advantage or disadvantage. You know, that the outcomes were pretty consistent as far as students gaining access.
Wait, does that just mean you don't have to like, you can take it but just not give them the score?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only place it was really an advantage for a student is if they just got a phenomenal score and that they wanted to show that. Other than that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys.
See you guys this Friday.